recording.
I can't see. It steams
You want to flip it around, Paul?
We know.
That's the trouble with glasses.
Yeah, steams are right up in the
You got to learn how to breathe, Paul. You can't get nervous. You got to keep everything calm.
My lungs crazy.
I was taking another photos. Okay, the time is 5:38. We'll call the meeting to order. And I guess the first thing on the agenda we ought to handle is the district meeting.
So, as it is currently scheduled for July 13th, the latest I have understood is that the governor lifted the 10-person rule. So we're open to conduct a meeting. I haven't heard anything to the contrary. And we just gotta, to the extent that we can, enforce the rules of social distancing and masks. Some people are going to be pretty stubborn about the masks, of that I'm sure. I will wear a mask the whole time, just to set precedent. I would encourage all others to do so. But we should be able to hold a meeting. We're going to have to spread things out as much as we can. I understand that high school is not available, so we're shooting for the middle school.
We are shooting for the middle school.
Did you happen to get a hold of somebody about a PA system?
I did. I got in touch with Brian Dunker today, and he gave me a quote for $200 to do the whole thing. Yes.
That's less than we charge to have it banned.
That is.
Yeah.
I got a big speaker and microphone. I'd be perfect.
I got stuff. I can't make sure it's going to work.
But this way, but he will record it like we've always had done at the high school, and then if we're going to check and see if maybe it will have the PowerPoint. If not, we'll have printed copies for people.
Yeah. I don't know why we wouldn't be able to do that. We just have to have a couple screens, right?
There's a screen on the stage, drop-down screen currently.
There's a screen at school?
At the middle school stage in the cafeteria.
Okay.
Or cafeteria.
Oh, were you doing cafeteria or the?
I thought it was a gym. We're in the gym.
Middle school gym. Okay.
We're going into the
I
gym.
don't know about that.
And, well, Brian seemed to think that all the walls are white, and he thought that we'd be able to just project it against the wall, but it depends on how we can adjust the lighting.
Yeah, I thought you could project there.
Yeah, so we're
Yeah,
going to
you're
try.
going to have a lot of daylight because it's still going to be daylight.
7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not as much as that.
We'll play with it and see if we can get things to see. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll work, see if it'll work. If it doesn't work, we'll prepare printed materials.
Do the floor.
Yeah.
We're doing the floors. The other option is maybe we hold it off a week and have it in the high school because the floor should be done by then. But that isn't a question that I was able to ask today.
They'll probably guard that floor for a while. I know them. The cafeteria isn't big enough.
Everything from the floor of the gym is going to the cafeteria, that's a problem.
For sure. Okay.
No, well,
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to trying to do it, but I think the notice thing, if what I read is accurate, you got to have at least 15 days prior to the meeting to warn it.
and by doing it on the 13th, that gives us plenty of time.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time for that. We would have had, it would have been a real challenge for the 26th of this month if we were trying to do it inside.
Right.
So,
Are you going to open the bleachers or just have it on the floor?
Last time, the bleachers were open a little bit, but that was for non-voting people.
Because I think the bleachers would give you a better chance of social distancing. You know what I'm saying?
Section it off.
Yeah, section it off and then have it so you can, like, they go up and you can see them. And you can space them more better than you are on the floor, and they can see what's going on too. Trouble is, sitting on that floor, you're one level,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, and that's going to be the trouble.
that's true, although, I mean, with seating on the floor, you can actually put the seats where you want them
True.
to ensure that there's distance. Probably going to need bleacher area just to make sure they have a phone anyway.
Yeah.
The other thing with the microphone, we need people that want to speak. If they're up on the bleachers, they got to keep coming up and down.
Yeah, that's true.
And then there are going to be those that aren't going to be able to climb the bleachers.
Yes.
I think most of the people want to speak. They sit up front anyways.
The people who want to speak are always in the seats that they can get to the microphone. You know that.
any intention of dictating how it goes, but just, I just want to make sure that we do our best to accommodate social distancing, minimum 6 feet. And I don't know how you feel about having masks available to hand out.
I think it's a good idea we do that.
I do too.
That and gloves if somebody wants to wear them.
Yep.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if they want to come, we owe them that much.
Right. I mean, I will wear a mask.
Yeah, but I think you should have someone at the door and make the statement to them when they come in that they should have, they need to put a mask on.
With the zapping for the.
Well, no, I think, you
Yeah,
know,
we should.
not to take it as granted, because some people will go there and they won't have a mask, or they just don't want to wear one, or whatever. But I think in a large group like that, this close,
I think it's a great idea. I think we should. I don't know if it's required, but I think we should if we can.
Yeah, I would imagine we should, get a little.
We have those.
Yeah. Have that list of 6 or 8 questions or whatever, and just, I mean, we'll go through it really.
Yeah.
Answer no to the questions and exactly.
Do you legally have the ability to turn somebody away if they have temperature?
If they have a temperature, we could,
I mean, you can't come. I mean, they're a registered voter. Can you say no? Do we have any authority to do that?
Without knowing it's COVID, you really can't, because they could have some other fever. I mean, you're going to be infringing on rights big time, and they'll let us know.
I know you can do it at work.
yeah.
somebody shows up at work or-
doctor's office will turn you away.
We'll turn you away.
I guarantee you right now, in the hospital way too.
Yeah.
A lot of places.
Yep.
Everybody turns.
So I
away
think
without
maybe the
fever.
rules, you might want to check, the rules might be different right now, as far as a public meeting. If somebody is over 100, and what is it, 0.4?
Yes.
Over 100.4, then I
Right.
think they might have the option to be able to say that it's highly recommended you not come into the meeting. Because it's like you said, you don't know what it is, but do you want to take the chance?
Right, but what we're saying is, if it's their right to, and unless we have a governor's order saying you cannot be present, now you're infringing on their right.
Might have to
and
ask the
without something to
Secretary of State on
Right.
that.
Right, you
So
gotta-
do you say to the other individuals that are in attendance, we have an individual that's over 100.4, and then give them the right to say, I'd rather not be here, it's not worth my time?
I know, I watched the New Hampshire Senate, whatever, they had their meeting, and ones that refused to wear masks had to sit up in the bleachers away from everybody else.
I saw that.
And then when they leave, they'll take their masks off.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. First off, I don't know that we can turn anybody away.
Exhibit A. The governor released emergency order 52 today with Exhibit A, and he said that all businesses in New Hampshire have to comply with Exhibit A.
Businesses.
And organizations.
I have seen nothing relative to public meetings. As a matter of fact, nobody would touch it from the governor's office or the Secretary of State's office. It was the only disappointment I had about the governor's response.
This is only to do with employees. Yeah.
I know the Veterans Home has tightened up their requirements. Now you have masks, and you have the outfit you put on, and you have a shield over your face.
They're going to be tested this week.
Yeah, and they're trying to protect their residents.
Well, they've got one worker that tested positive as a reason. So I don't know. I think if you ask people, I think most people wouldn't have a problem putting a mask on.
Yep, that would be, that level of protection with social distancing. Supposedly pretty effective in preventing spreading and stuff like that. The whole problem, you don't know what the government does. So.
That's true. And now they have masks with the dents on the sides.
Yeah.
That protects the person wearing it, but if they cough or anything, it's not protecting you.
Yeah.
Well, we can always, ask the questions, post it, that if you have any of this, we recommend you stay home. Another thing Brian asked me was, do you want to put it on Zoom or something like that so that you could do it remotely? I told him I didn't know.
Well, if he's willing to do that for $200, that's a deal. And I don't see the downside of it, do you?
All right,
Except they can't vote.
Sure, they
Someone's
can-
monitoring them.
Absolutely.
Well, they still can't vote, even though they're registered
Right.
voters.
They're not going to be able to.
Right, that's the only downside to it.
They
Yeah.
can't participate, but they can vote.
But, you know, the best thing that we can do is just have somebody at the door with a thermometer and ask the questions.
Yes, and so down at the office, which I've only been to a few times here in the last few months, they have it set up outside or inside the vestibule there if it's warm. And they just, you know, they have lines. Somebody steps up, they have to wait in line, but they're social distanced,
Yeah.
waiting in line. Just have to make sure that's the case on the outside. Let them in, get them squared away, hopefully, you know, take their advice on masks.
Can I do a mask?
Yeah, we gotta have Tilton police presence for sure.
Yes.
Not to, you know, we shouldn't have to rely on them to enforce anything, just be there for us. You know, I don't think it's,
Well, they come there. They're at every meeting that we
Of
have.
course.
so.
There's a restriction on overtime right now for the PD though.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
But this is after, I can understand their restriction on overtime.
But we'll be paying them.
And we'll be paying
We
them.
always get a bill from them.
Right. So I will call the PD to set that up.
Also, keep in mind, it's not March, it's July.
That's right, it is.
It might be hotter than blazes in there with masks on.
Couple people passed out.
Yeah, well, I had them today in the cemetery, I can tell you. The people with masks on, they're wearing them and they're having a hard time with respiratory problems.
Yeah.
They just can't breathe.
Maybe some signs, social distance, checking in and have a sign say, you must wear a mask. I mean,
We'll set the chairs up so that they're far enough, they're 6 feet apart, so.
But I still think when you check in, you know, to do your check-in, there should be somebody there to make sure.
We can do all that.
So we should, July 13th?
For them?
Yep.
And if you need help getting masks, then the chief told me everything's in. Because for elections in Tilton, he's already got thousands of voters.
We do have to advertise hard that there's a change in location in the high school.
Yes.
Might be worth having somebody over at the high school gym just to say.
I'll put a sign.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're going to do it 7 o'clock like we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we've got plenty of time. We'll get it out there. It'll be in the papers. It'll be on the websites. It'll go out.
Yep.
Is the middle school confirmed?
Definitely the
Yes.
high school is unconfirmed.
Tim
That's what they
says
told
that the
us.
middle school has confirmed because he has been dealing with the Robs.
You know, at the meeting last night, they said the buildings are still closed by the governor and by the school board, so I didn't know if they didn't say anything about opening it back up, so I didn't know if you got that.
Tim had checked into it, I'm sure. He said,
Where's the-
because when we were going to do the Gay Jill thing, he was talking with Rob.
Yeah.
So he's just been dealing with that.
Sounds good.
Molten are almost doing theirs outdoors at the Sandwich Fairground.
Yes, they are.
That might be something to keep in the back of your mind too, if it is real hot in that gymnasium, to be able to go to a parking lot and have it, as opposed to indoors.
Maybe what happens is it's just as hot outside.
Well,
Yeah,
We can get
that's
the
a,
ladder truck there and
Spray
spray
everybody.
everybody.
spray day.
A mister.
yeah. Outdoors is a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
You gotta-
Well, we like to give you as much trouble as we can, Mr. Monitor.
Yeah. Well, what is it, 40, to have someone removed?
Yeah. It takes a vote, though, doesn't it, the people?
No, if you're unruly or bad behavior, you get
I
one
thought they
warning.
have to accept moderator's rules.
True.
Yes, except that, if you've ever noticed, they don't hand out rules unless you accept them. The reason for that is because my understanding is, any ruling by the moderator, no matter what has been accepted for rules, can be overturned by simple majority, so why bother?
Yep.
So should we make a motion to accept that quote or pay the bill or?
That is a deal.
I
I'm
know,
pretty amazed that he's willing to do it without a
I know.
I think he's probably giving the town.
Exactly.
He is definitely giving us a break.
Yeah.
Well, we are all the taxpayers too, to the school district. When you think about it, it comes out of one pocket, back into the other pocket.
Brian's a pro, man. He's got great stuff.
Yeah,
All this,
and he has that night off.
Oh, sweet.
He has Mondays off, so.
He only has one job right now. Instead of 6.
So we all set with that?
Probably need to make a motion for the funding for that, like Eric said.
I'll make a motion that we accept the quote from Delta Productions for $200.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved second. All those in favor? Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
You're all set with that part?
Yep.
We can hopefully disc golf is on. Thank you, man.
Okay.
Ladies. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thanks, sir. You guys?
Good night.
All right.
Maybe, let's skip over old business right now, fire engines. We'll go to new business. The water district.
So, I guess we can go with a scenario where, I forget when the Tanger outlet did a sprinkler flow test. How long ago was that?
The one that I
To
called
drain the system?
recently.
Yeah.
Um,
So they did it without you guys knowing about it, and they flowed their, I think Tanger was 2,000 gallons a minute,
3,000.
3,000. And,
That was J.J.
Yeah, Tanger's.
but at any rate, the water district didn't know about it. They did their sprinkler flow test, which was 2,000 or 3,000 gallons a minute, and they do it for 3 to 5 minutes generally, and it created a problem within the water district. It drained some of the higher elevations of water.
It also knocked us down on well 2 to a low level limit, which gave an alarm off because it was pulling through the pump.
Sucking it right through the
Sucking
pump.
it through the pump, which sucked the well below to the low level, which then gave an alarm. And we had no idea why we were getting that alarm that day.
So, the reservoir holds 1 million gallons, right?
Correct.
Is that always full?
No.
So do you start the day with like 1 million and it works its way down during
Not
the day?
necessarily.
Right. Depends on demand, obviously. Right now, we're very high demand, have been ever since COVID started.
Sure. Everybody's home.
So the wells kick on depending on the tank level. So 13 feet, wells turn on, 15 feet, wells shut off. Time of day doesn't matter, it's just as that tank goes up and down, the wells turn back on and off. So it could be day or night, you know, you never know when it's going to be full, down to the 13.
Right.
So, you know, some of the problems that we've had is we have certain places that have fire pumps. Not everybody has a fire pump that has fire protection. The ones that do have fire pumps, they submitted a proposal to us of their pump, let's just say, their pump could do 2,000 gallons a minute at 100%. It goes through engineering reviews, and it gets approved and finalized that we approve 2,000 gallons a minute, we can give it to you for, and it's usually a window of 2 hours or 4 hours, we have to guarantee you that much water. At some point in time, NFPA changed their rules as to, instead of testing at 100% of that pump, now they want to test 150% of that pump. So now you took 2,000 gallons a minute and now you made it 3,000 gallons a minute for a test, basically. Because that pump is probably never ever going to do 150% at any time. Because if everything's going, it should be 100%. If every head in that building was going, it should be 100%. So, you know, a lot of the problems lies in testing, where they want to do the 150. It's pulling more than we approved. And in some situations, like 3,000 gallons a minute, it'll turn the whole entire town brown, and we chase it for days around town, dirty water.
Let me just add something. You asked a question about, you said, how big is the tank? And I think you were wondering, well, if it's only 3,000 gallons a minute, it only goes for 5 minutes, right? It's 150,000 gallons, right? That's not a million gallons, or even 250,000 gallons. So
15,000 gallons.
15,000.
it's 50 gallons, okay. So why is that causing this disruption to the system, right? Because you said the pressure was low. What happens is, if you envision, it's almost like the veins in a person, right? All the mains are, and there's restriction on all those mains, and the water can only go so fast to that point where that water is being pulled, right? So it's pulling from all these different areas, and in their system, some areas that are pretty high, like the top
Veterans
of
Home.
the Veterans Home, or the top of Academy, and that area. So what happens is trying to pull that water there, water from the tank, water from the wells, and that creates those low pressure areas. It's not that there's the tank necessarily running out of water, it's that the system is going almost negative pressure because of all that water that's trying to be pulled. The other problem that happened, and I think this is the well issue, is the pressure gets so reduced. So let's say the normal pressure in the main coming off the wells is 90 psi or something like that. Well, you have 3,000 gallons that it's trying to pull, and it also sees, oh, I got all this water here. So that demand is pulling that water towards the J. Jill facility, right? And all of that pump is pumping away. And it's used to a certain amount of back pressure for it to pump on its curve. You guys know pump on the curve well, because your fire engines. Well, it goes way over the curve, and you start, instead of pumping 500 gallons a minute, it's pumping 800 or 900. And there's only a certain amount of water that well can actually, replenish as it's pumping. So that's why the well went off. So we have the two scenarios. It's really not related to the tank size. It's related to that low pressure in the system, right? And that extra draw of the system is creating the negative pressure up in the high areas.
So, well, I understand all of that, and depending upon the pipe sizes that you have, whether it's a 12-inch main, an 8-inch main,
Right.
a friction loss, all of that depends, factors in the flow capability.
Right.
And the pressure coming out of the reservoir, I don't know what the main is coming out of there down to Main Street. It doesn't matter.
It's 12 and 16.
12 and 16 mostly, yeah.
So the pipe size actually can handle the flow according to all my hydraulic stuff. But if you don't have the capacity to deliver that flow, then that's where you have problems.
Well, I think John spoke well, Chief, when he said that when these places were being engineered, okay, the information that came to the water district was at 100%, okay? And our engineer, Stantec, or Dufresne Henry back years ago, they looked at it and they said, yeah, the water system can provide the 100%. But then the problem is we've gone from 100 to 150%, never going back and looking at the engineers, whether we can actually do that. And when it adversely affects the public drinking water, it creates a problem. And they do these tests in the middle of the day when exit 20 is at the busiest. And it creates a scenario that we've done well with sending out letters to the company saying that it has to be scheduled through the office. We've tried to schedule a lot of them the couple of weeks after we've done the flushing, so our system's cleaner. Okay. We tried to work to, but we can only bend so far before we run into a problem. And the problem we're running into is this 150%. And it makes, I guess, to me personally, as a commissioner, I don't see the value in running a pump at 150%. It would be like running a motor that the red line's at 5,000, and I'm going to take it at 7,500. I'm going to lose that motor. You're not going to run that, and to me it makes no sense, common sense-wise, why that this is a requirement now all of a sudden that they've got to run these at 150% and create the problem that they're creating within the system.
So the way we have to look at it is that NFPA 25 is the standard for which these pumps are done at, and NFPA sets those standards, and those standards are incorporated into state law, and we have to abide by the state law as a minimum standard. We can actually make it more. We could pass a local ordinance saying that instead of 150%, we require 200%, but we're not going to do that.
Yeah, then the water district would probably say we're gonna have to shut down a lot of these fire pumps.
But I guess what would really benefit all of us, so we know there's a problem. We have to work to find a solution that's going to meet the needs of the water district and meet the needs of the business and property owners that have to meet this NFPA standard, or they're going to have trouble getting insurance for their businesses. But one of the things that the water district can do is they can try and get on the NFPA committee that helps set these standards. It's not just firefighters that are on these committees. In fact, firefighters and some of these standards are very few in number, and it's usually people from the business community or the industries or utilities that are affected by the codes that they set. So that's, it's down in Quincy, so it's not that far away. If you wanted to get on a committee, try and get on. I don't know what associations the water districts have that you might belong to that would have a representative to these committees that set the standards. But that's beside the point right now. Right now we have a problem, and we need to really sit down together and figure out how can we solve the problem. What do we need to do to solve the problem?
So we took a look at the NFPA 25, and in the 2017 edition, I actually wasn't in 2020, there's a number of exceptions in there. It does appear to give the local authority, which is you, the ability to provide a waiver when these situations occur. And if you look at, I think it's NFPA 25, 8.3.3.1.1, right?
Yep.
And it says, if available suction supplies do not allow flowing at 150% of the rated pump capacity, the fire pump shall be tested to the maximum allowable discharge. So, in this case, the supply is the Tilton Northfield Water District system, right?
Yep.
So it seems like there is some latitude here for you to say, okay, what can they do, right? And I think that's what John and I were talking about beforehand is we were going to look at every single system that has a pump, right? What we know it can handle, we can put it, and we didn't really explain this, but we have a computer model for the entire water system, and we can impose these flows on the system. What we do as a standard is we maintain 20 psi in those high areas, right? So if J. Jill wants to do 2,000 gallons a minute, we impose that on the system. We flow it under a conventional or standard condition. The tank's at mid-level, the pumps are off maybe, and then we flow it. And if we see a problem, then we say, okay, you can't go over. In J. Jill's case, actually that happened originally, and we said you can't go over, I think it was 1,500 gallons per minute or something.
It's 1,800.
Yeah,
1,800
but
is
at the time, and it was 25 years ago, so I was involved in that. And we ended up having to make some modifications, and we're familiar with the RTUs, where basically, if their system is called into service, right, it communicates, it says, hey, we're going to turn on to the wells, and the wells then turn on.
SCADA system.
So it creates more flow,
It's a
so they
direct
can
wire.
accommodate. So we did that analysis so we could get up to the 2,000, not 3,000, but up to 2,000, right? So when we've done those analyses on basically every system that has gone in that we know of at least, and for the most part, before the 2016 150% regulation went in, we were doing that analysis at 100%. And one of those that was like really tight, right, for example, was still, I can't remember what it was, the academic building, yeah, thanks, John. And we took a look at it, and it's been so long since we did that. We ran the model the other day, and we realized that that can handle about, I think it's 1,150 gallons per minute without causing problems on the higher elevations in the system. And their system, their pump rated capacity is 1,000 gallons per minute. They obviously want to pump at 1,500 gallons per minute. And we said that's going to be a problem because it'll basically go negative on those higher level areas. So that's kind of the problem there. So our thought now is we took John listed off all the pumps throughout the system, and we'll do an analysis at 150%, and we'll put together what they can handle. Some of them can handle it, like the tractor place, probably not going to be an issue, right? Yeah. However, there are some that are an issue. We could provide that information so everyone can kind of see what we're facing.
So do you think that might be the best idea to find out? I mean, before we go forward and try to do anything, we've got to, I mean, if you guys can do that on the computer model, that would be the best thing to start with.
So, and we can provide that information to the Water District. They can provide that to you, and when someone wants to do one of these tests, you're aware of what the limitations are of the system, and then you can make that determination and communicate if that's what you decide. Maybe it's 137.
So it's something we'll have to look at for sure. But at the same time, there's a problem that probably somehow needs to be addressed as well going forward. Whether we restrict people getting on the system for sprinklers, because from my understanding, there's two big things coming up, like the Honda,
Well, that's,
Auto Honda,
Well,
and the
I make sure now that they're submitting 150.
yeah.
If you want a 150 test, you better submit 150, don't submit 100.
See, I think that's the thing, Chief, too, what we were talking about, it's changed. The regulations and what we were looking at has changed, but yet no one ever went back and looked and said, well, can we give that to them?
Right,
They just
yeah, I know.
upped the number arbitrarily without ever talking to the water district. And I'm sure we're not the only small water system in the state that has the same problem.
Well, we do this for other.
I know, but I'm just saying, I'm sure we're not the only ones.
Well, yeah, the state accepted the NFDA code. It's nationwide, really. It's not just, they're not looking at you particularly.
No, I'm not saying that,
Yeah,
but I'm sure that.
when you think about it, who has the most weight in these big cities, 36-inch mains, you're not getting, 2,000 gallons per minute is not going to adversely affect the water pressure in the city of Manchester, for the most part, right? But here, for example, on the Tilton School, you're at 1,000 gallons per minute. That went through the system. At the time, this was way before the 150, not an issue, right?
Yep.
So now, when Planet Honda came in, we were ahead of the game here, and we said, okay, what do you need for water? We did the analysis, and we said, and we told them up front that you can't get what you need, right, without the RTU or the SCADA interconnection, right? So then the next step in that would be to do that analysis with the SCADA system and say, okay, this is what you can supply, right? If that's 150%, great. If it's not, it might be better to have a little more than that. But if we can give you, let's say, 2,500 gallons per minute, is that going to provide you 125%, 150% of what your pump needs to be tested? And that's the process that we're using now.
Sure. No, I know it's a lot of different things that they could have their own cisterns to supplement as well.
That's another alternative.
Yeah.
I mean, which is what
Walmart.
It's a lot of water.
Lowe's.
It's a lot of water, and like I said, they were just a small system, and it puts a big burden. And if it was an actual fire, Chief, we have it set up so we can turn both pumps on, give you everything we can give them. I mean, that's the way it is. But for everyday testing is I guess it's just a scratch of the head.
Yeah, because if we had, for instance, if we got one or two buildings going in the downtown area, we're definitely going to be flowing 6,000 to 7,000 gallons a minute. For how long the system can supply that, I don't know. Right.
Then you wouldn't hear a complaint from the water district on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we know
That's
that.
why we're here. We're here
In that
trying to-
scenario, we're
Yeah.
going to take all the water you can, we'll deal with it afterwards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But to have it happen on multiple occasions throughout the day, it gets expensive for the water district. How we pay for the manpower and everything else, and the waste of water. And And then the complaints, of course, the restaurants, they're hurt because they, all their soda machines and everything, they've got to shut them down. And I mean,
But there's another part of this too, is we have to have the water flowing for the test. We have to meet the test for the occupant owner, because their insurance is going to be based on that. So if they can't get what they need to from the insurance, they may not be able to open, or they're going to pay a higher rate. Yes, cisterns, some of that can be shifted down line for costs and things like that, but going forward, knowing obviously any new construction, it has to be engineered and planned for the new standard.
Right.
You get into that grandfathering the old thing, but we can't not test, because then they're not getting what they need for their insurances and stuff like that. So it almost comes down to a working cooperative of, hey, we're going to be running this so that you know you can bump the pumps up that day because we're going to be testing this. So maybe a cooperative communication fashion like that, because as you said, if we needed the water flow, you could hit the pumps. Well, unfortunately, part of the
I always make sure that a pump is running when
Right.
I do any test.
Exactly. So that's a part of the communication
Right.
process, is notify, hey, we have to do these tests because we have to hit the annual requirement for the business people, so that,
but it's like Renee's saying, John, the system, like at the Tilton School, would only provide 1,100 gallons, and they run at 15. Even if you have the pumps running, you got a negative at the metro.
Well, in that
You
case,
got-
if
you
the
got an
pumps,
issue.
if the pumps were on, in that case, I think your system, we didn't do the analysis, but I think the system probably could get you to that point.
Right.
The problem we run into is like for a J. Joe, for example.
yes,
They're maxed out, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else we can do other than them putting in a cistern to
Right.
go above what you can handle, you know what I'm saying?
and so that's something
And
where,
that's like the Planet Honda and stuff, the new buildings, you know, the huge buildings, they're just bigger than our system can actually supply.
right, and so part of the engineering cost goes into that, just like the whole 140 corridor. Does a business want to come in, dealing with the sewer and the water and capabilities, or the septic or pumps if they'll allow it, but if not, then the business may choose to not come in. But if the business is here, they have to be ready to incur that cost to meet what the requirement is of the time for their insurance rating. Otherwise, their insurance might be higher, and that's what the business may say, well, I'll take the higher insurance rating, knowing to meet that standard. But I think part of the cooperation that we need to be going forward to definitely be looking at is talking between the two agencies and bumping the pumps. Get them flowing. Yes, it's a refract or refill on the pumps that we got to worry about too, is that when you turn the pumps on, the water's going to go down a little bit depending on how much of an aquaflow, whatever it is you got down below for refill. But it's just coordinating skid. But these businesses are paying taxes expecting to be able to meet their occupancy requirements. So we got to look at them on the user end too,
I think
unfortunately.
going forward, the most important thing is to coordinate during the design phase, right?
Absolutely.
Because they can design their system, right? So it requires less flow,
Yes.
you know, how that works,
Yeah.
right? So I think if they know, and that's what we do with Planet Honda, right?
Yeah.
The legacy problem, legacy facilities, I think, are going to require more effort on everyone's part, probably, to coordinate that. But in some cases, right, there's nothing they can do in the system to prepare for pumping 3,000 gallons a minute. There's
No matter what we do.
So those are going to be the ones where a decision's going to have to be made. And one thing I don't know is, even though you have the authority, right, who's that requirement? What I don't know is what the insurance company does when you reduce that.
Correct.
I don't know how that works.
Right. And there's going to be the fire flow, I mean,
Because I didn't get along.
because, yeah, it's like you're looking at rural water supply systems, things like that. If we had an incident, we're going to be looking at hard water and tanker water, things like that, to keep that flow up. So there's a lot of pieces to it, but the testing part, these businesses came in and designed to be able to test. And it's just like the building code. We know that every 3 years, they're going to up the code. And whether we adopt it then, or if we wait 6 years to adopt the code, as long as they stay status quo, they should be able to meet the standard. But if they want to do an addition on, now they would have to get to the new 150 standard. But right now, they're paying what they engineered for it, so we just got to find a way to also support them. Otherwise, they're all going to say, well, you're not fulfilling what we needed when you said you come here.
Well, we can do the 100%. We can do the 100%. Because that's what we engineered and proved, you know. the 150.
We can do the analysis to see what you can do, right? We know they can do 100 because that's their improvement. We do the analysis, maybe they can do, like I said, 137%, something like that. And then the other part of it is turn the pump on, what John said. We can analyze that scenario also.
I think, biggest thing moving forward is obviously we have safety and fire system, watch that analysis, please sit down, take a look at everything, and see the big picture, move forward. You know, for any new businesses that are going in, I know we thought, you know, that 150% of the cap, 7% is going to have to take place. For any new places that have that requirement. You know, that 150% of the capacity to the pump, it's not only for the pump, it's that's the supply, the water supply, the pump curve to see how it rates over time. So that's why that went into effect a while ago. But, you know, I just think, like everybody said, it's just a matter of communicating and trying to get on the same page as we move forward. So, yeah, as soon as that analysis is done, and we can set up the time to get together and take a look at everything, I think we can move forward from there.
So Tim, what are the options if it's a business that at 150%, like Renee says, no matter even if you had the pumps and everything going, we can't get there?
For a new build?
For a new building coming in, what's the stance the fire district is going to take with that? Because you're the guys who give the occupancy.
Well, right.
You're the guys that sign on.
Well, I would think the water district would say that we can't supply you with that water, then they'd have to come up with an alternative.
The business owner might have to put a cistern in addition to it with his pumps and all that, and that's an incurred cost they're gonna have when they do their site.
To meet their 4-hour requirement.
Yeah, there's the Lowe's approach, or what you want to call it, or Home Depot, big tank. They don't even really need the system. I'll just to refill the tank. You know, whereas you got Walmart, which is a combo, right?
Yeah.
Combo requires a certain amount of water going as it's going out.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of analysis done for that. So it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be one of these different systems that gets in play, that we have to coordinate the design approach and the approval approach with you and the district so that it works.
Because a new business coming in, if they know they can't hit that 150 and they're not willing to pay for a cistern, they're gonna look elsewhere, unfortunately, but that's the nature of the business when you're starting up something new. You know your requirements, that you have to have your setbacks, you know you need to have all your things, and if you don't have it, it's not my best location to go to. So, with a new business anyways, but somehow we also have to take care of our existing businesses.
Well, that's it. You got to take care of what you already have in the system. I mean, you can't put those people in harm's way because of a new business coming in.
Are you guys looking to increase your capacity at any manner for any businesses?
No, we can't afford to,
I mean,
Chief.
At this point in time, I mean,
Like,
we're
We're more
upgrading
concerned with
old
water
mains.
quality than we are
Yeah.
capacity.
We're upgrading old mains as fast as we can.
I mean, there have been improvements to the system.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of that.
All the
Replacing
wirings
water
that they do,
mains
and
and
each
things
time you
like
do
that.
that, there's an incremental benefit to how much water you can get to a certain place. And when they replaced that water crossing under
Yeah, that was
the
huge.
river, that was significant, right? And John's been doing some work down, I think it's Bay Street, for
Yeah.
improvements there. So all of these different improvements do increase it, but it doesn't change it by, 40%. Increase it by like 12% in some cases. And I think that was a big one. And we actually were able to make the Walmart, I think, thing work, because right about the same time that was happening, we had just completed the river crossing, which allowed us to make it all happen, which was really beneficial.
Yeah, because when they took off the Park Street crossing, it really put us in adverse conditions. Because we really only had one good crossing by the Texaco station. The old 6-inch line by Cumberland's, what we replaced was down, so it was probably an inch and a half. And that's the trouble, and the system's not getting any younger. So some of the mains out there, and we know where we have our problems, but it's coming up with the dollars and not put such a strain on the businesses or the customers of the water district. We took on a $9.1 million debt that we had to pay back. We've got that down just underneath $6 million now. So, it makes it tough.
We got a few more years.
Yeah, well, we're doing the best we can, Paul, with it.
And we've invested another, 4 million
You know,
plus,
over 4.5 million.
in new mains and.
We replaced the pumps. We're in a process where every other year we're doing the rehabs of the wells to try to keep the capacity of the wells as best we can. But we're getting to a point where the water quality is going to dictate to us before the water capacity. So, such as whether it's going to be a green sands filtration system or whatever, and that's big money also. So, and you don't increase your capacity there, you just increase the quality of the water.
Sure.
You bring the quality of the water down.
Well, yeah, I'm familiar because where I'm from, they spent
Oh,
millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on the water treatment plant, storage capacity, increasing the capacity down Main Street, with the increasing the size of the mains.
And I think what Renee says speaks volumes too, Chief, when he says, the new systems should be designed so they use less water. Because of the people using toilets that flush less, dishwashers, wash machines that use less water, our water usage is dropping down. We're on a curve. Most systems, I think when they did that,
Meaning
rate study,
revenues.
2.5%.
Ours has been going down instead of up. With all these new businesses and such coming in, instead of revenue going up, we're going down.
Yeah,
Because
because
of all the
we're
water
actually
savings.
selling less water.
Yeah.
So, and that's, people, like I said, a toilet now is 1.6 gallons or less, where it used to be 3 or 4 gallons. So, the revenue, and we just barely did a new structure on our revenue because of that, because we were losing revenue. It's pretty hard to walk backwards and keep leaning backwards without falling down.
No, you don't want to do that.
Still paying your bills, so. And our last rate increase was in 2001. So we went 19 years without a rate increase. Changing the rates. Which is tough to do.
All that ledge they blasted in my house.
Well, we just did that for you,
Yeah,
We knew you didn't like to sleep anyway.
that wasn't working, that was my wife.
Well, you don't sleep when she's upset, when she can get home.
Happy wife, happy life.
So I guess my thought is, if we can get the information, these guys, you guys can analyze it, get the information, and I don't know, we go from there.
I think it goes back, Paul, to years ago when the water district was formed, just trying to have communications between the water district and the fire district. And that comes back to the hydrant colorings and, flushing of the hydrants and what we can pull from the hydrant, so this one's colored and this one is a green and this one's a red, so you grab the green. It goes back to just having the good communications.
And you're right, I don't think we're out to hurt anybody. I think it's better to work together than blame it on one person.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here, and that's why we brought it to both, to the deputy and to the chief, the issue that we were facing.
When UPS goes in, is that going to be on the system?
Yep. I would assume so. It's gonna be a pretty big building, 40,000 square. That's huge.
It'll be required to be sprinkled per NFPA.
Yeah.
Unless they can engineer it out through engineering means, which is possible. There's big buildings without sprinkler systems because they engineered the sprinkler system out through construction processes. So I think the Verizon Center in Manchester, whatever they call it now, it's not sprinkled.
Yeah.
They use a lot of flame, non-flame.
Non-flammable materials and stuff like that.
Tons of doors. It's all about egress.
Well, I think you're going to see a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of,
Installation.
I think you're going to see a lot of expansion on 140 in Northfield.
I think when TPS goes in, it'll help open the doors over there.
Yeah. Well, there's something else that looks like it broke down on something too.
Yeah, I see the clearing stumps over there.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe that was a storage
I don't know. Haven't heard yet.
I'm not planning committee yet.
I read that you were.
My name's on it, but I haven't attended a meeting yet. There's only been one, but yeah, stepping into that nightmare.
Chief, one other quick thing. With the episode on Friday night and the Saturday, should we look at having another training on hydrant usage? You know, John can bring
Really
up Ted.
I'm fairly certain we know how to use the hydrants, and we're changing over to crank valves rather than quarter turn valves, so they'll slow and close open, so. Yeah, I understand that's probably a water hammer that caused that
Oh, yeah.
problem. But,
So you are going back to the
yes.
before it fixed.
Yeah.
I figured it was.
It
Water
just
turn ball
becomes,
valves.
it becomes expensive when it hits on the weekend.
So some of the problem may be that when we have a large fire like that, and we have a lot of out-of-town companies trying to supply us with water, they may not have that style.
Some don't have hydrants.
Some of them don't even have hydrants.
Well, you know, that,
Can you design a protocol, chief, where someone from the local company is actually manning the hydrant as opposed to anybody?
Well,
Or is that just
It's
not?
a manpower
Is that
thing.
not workable?
if we can do it, we will, but like in the middle of the night, on a Friday night, you have a manpower situation where you can.
You want all the water at the scene first, and the second due, third due is going to be your water supply, wherever they're coming from. Rather, because you want your bodies at the fire initially, rather than, oh, I'll go to the hydrant while you wait for someone from Guilford to get over here for manpower.
Well, was it Friday night they had the fire up there? Did that tax your
Friday
system?
night.
Friday.
Yeah.
Did that tax your system, that fire?
well, they went down to the bottom of the hill to fill trucks and then trucked it back up to fight the fire.
Yeah.
Which is a common thing if they can, to shuttle back and forth.
But you were just talking about having local.
No, but no,
They said same
the water
return.
hammer came down and busted it right underneath the highway.
Well, that's not good.
But
No.
No, so really what we're trained to do is to leave a hydrant kit that has our 2.5-inch valves on it.
right,
I'm not sure what happened that night, but I know a quarter turn did get put on it. And I do know there was a handful of apartments that don't have hydrants that were shoveling in water.
right.
And that may or may not have led to the problem. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I have before brought in a trailer just, you know, for demo purposes and such. That, you know, it shows the cutaways, you know, they're all cut out. You can see all how they work and all
Yeah.
that stuff. I did it for you guys
Yep,
before.
Sure.
We could do it for other departments.
And it comes
too.
back to communications thing,
Right.
and that's why we're here, I mean.
Because a lot of guys, they know what the hydrant looks like above ground, they don't know what it looks like below.
Sure.
No, don't know what the guts, or how it operates really.
Sure.
They just know turning it, got water or don't.
You need water?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you do like in-services with other departments, and you have like burns and stuff.
Yes.
And I'm just asking, would it be valuable to have something like John's talking about, have a trailer there to do an in-service with the departments that will help you in a situation like that can come in, and they don't have a hydrant system in their system, but they come in and actually see.
I think it would be great for a department training where we would invite Sanperton, for example. They don't have fire hydrants,
Right.
and they were using that hydrant that night to come down and see that and get the opportunity to look at, you know, these are the components of the fire hydrant.
I mean, it's knowledge.
Right.
And knowledge is good, no matter how you look at it.
No, we can definitely.
Yeah.
definitely benefit.
Is another option from the administration, an interdepartment memo of just awareness of the situation as a lesson learned? Is that something that's still?
It's been pretty much around the department already.
Yeah.
But I mean, outside
Oh,
of that,
sure it has.
you share it to the other
Sure it
departments,
has.
so that, hey, lessons learned, this was
And
something we learned.
you could bring, you know, we could do, like Samerton or wherever.
Sure.
Bring them to 140
Right.
and actually operate a hydrant out there off the system, you know, at full flows. You know, just to,
That's so you get the opportunity to do it.
right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I could have the cutaway trailer there and a real hydrant operating. You know,
Well, I think that's
no
definitely
problem.
something we can do. I think it's a good idea.
Because when you go to an alarm, they're the ones that comes down, right? Sanford would be one of them. would
It depends on the actual incident, and we have different run cards set up. Most of our automatics do have hydrants, so we get Franklin, we'll get Laconia, we'll get Belmont. But when we get into the rural supply, which that was up on Bean Hill Road, we do get the departments that don't have tanker trucks.
So it'd be like Sanford and Canterbury.
Sanford, San Martin, Canterbury, Guilford, believe it or not.
Really?
They do have a couple hydrants. Yeah, on the 20 side. So there are a handful, believe it or not, that don't have hydrants.
So we have no problem coming over
Okay.
and doing that.
Yeah, definitely, we'll get together and we'll do something.
Okay,
And
thank you.
a question for you guys. With the study that you're gonna try doing with the engineer, are you comfortable with sharing areas of concern? When you do your estimate?
We're getting under high.
Well, I'm just trying to work that cooperative together, saying, okay, so we've identified in all the businesses in the area, or regions in the area, these red circles are areas of concern, because that's then looking at if a waiver or if something for the administration to be able to work at, they know where to target for get it into a more manageable application.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work, but I can tell you that early in the review process, right, we could provide a memo that said this one's going to be a problem, right? Because trying to kind of identify, we all kind of know what the refresh areas are, but then you're going to guess what's the demand going to be in that location. I think that would be kind of tough to do, but we certainly
Depends on the demand.
make sure that that information gets out and is communicated to your department as early as possible and approved.
Well, you don't know what the demand on these new businesses are until they submit.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. Yeah, like you said, UPS may not have anything, right? So no sense in killing us.
I doubt it, but
Yeah.
I do too.
Anything else with you? Anybody?
Appreciate your time, gentlemen.
thank you for coming.
Thanks
Yeah,
for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Hey Scott, unrelated, but since I got you here, I'll send you a text later.
Okay. Send me a text.
Have a good
Good
night.
night, Good night, Cass.
Since
Thank
you're
you.
here,
It's kind of my neighbor. No wonder I was able to solicit my name yet.
Okay, the next thing on there is the fire engine.
Since we're doing that, I'm gonna spread out a little bit more.
I asked a sheet for everybody. I don't know if everybody had a chance to go over. I emailed you a previous one, but this is an updated version of it because I was able to go over it with the bank and fine tune the numbers a little bit. Didn't change the numbers a whole lot, but still improved them for us. And basically, I did it like, we have a problem, I'm proposing a solution, and I'm giving you the benefits of going with the solution that I propose. And first off, the two trucks we're talking about are engine 1 and engine 3. Engine 1,
This one.
it's this engine 1. It's coming up on 20 years old. And engine 3, which is like 15 years old. Over the past 3 years, the average cost to keep these things running is $41,581. And these funds are from our operating account, which is the account that is funded through the tax rate. And they just keep getting more and more expensive to operate because basically they're all used up. They break on a continual basis, and over the course of the last month and a half, I think this is the first day where we've actually had both engines in service at the same time. There have been a few occasions where we were using the latter as first due because both engines were out of service. And then there was about 4 or 5 days where the latter was out of service, both engines were out of service, and we were using an old Winter Storm engine as our first due engine in our fire district.
No, just a quick question, why would the ladder be out of service?
It was at the Lakes region for its preventative maintenance, and the two intake valves were in the process of being rebuilt, and they sent the wrong parts, so the truck was already taken apart, so they couldn't give it back to us because it just wasn't going to do anything at that point. You couldn't throw water through it until the right parts came. And so we had to wait over the weekend for the right parts to be overnighted and then installed.
While I was there, the other engines ran into some problems. So,
So that was scheduled, the other
Correct,
two
yeah,
were
correct.
surprised.
Yes.
Okay.
So when we do the PMs, we try to schedule them one after the other, so it's easier to do it that way. Well, when one's up there being PM, then you get one or two of them breaking down, it puts us in a tough situation. So I did an analysis, and using the ladder truck, because other than the aerial device, the ladder truck is pretty much set up like a pumper would be, whereas a motor, transmission, it's got a pump, it's got a water tank, it's got all the accoutrements similar to what a pumper would be. That, over the last 5 years, has only averaged $3,413 a year to maintain.
How old's the aerial?
The aerial's at 2012 or 13? 13.
when did you come here?
I came in 14, so
Yes,
it has to be
13.
13. Over the last 3 years, the ladder has cost $3,098 a year to maintain.
What else?
The ladder. So that's what. So if we get new vehicles, new engines, you can. I would expect no more than $5,000 or $5,500 per year to keep an engine on the road. And the only reason it'd be that much is because the water we use, we have to keep rebuilding valves. That, no matter how new or how old the truck is, we're rebuilding valves around here all the time because of the harshness of the water. Whether we're sucking up rocks or whatever, the valves get damaged. And if they get damaged enough, we can't draw a draft. And in a lot of the places where we fight fires, we have to have a draft, be able to suck water out of a pond or a river or something. Well, not really sucking it, but. And so the problem is right now is these two engines have become so unreliable and so expensive to the taxpayer that it would be better for the fire districts to buy two engines now instead of one. If we buy two engines right now, there's multiple things, or a crash, that will happen. The first thing will happen is that our repairs and maintenance bills are going to go down by approximately $30,000 a year, given our history with engine 1 and engine 3, and comparing that to engine 1, using a $10,000 or $11,000 figure to maintain two new engines, whereas right now we're $41,000 over the last 3 years. And if we keep going at the rate that we have been this year with engine 1 and engine 3, we're going to spend $48,000 to keep those things on the road. The new engines would be coming out of the apparatus and equipment fund and would not affect the tax rate. Excuse me?
The apparatus fund.
The 1.5?
Right now it's 1.3,
Okay.
because we just paid for the SEDAs. And additionally, if we buy two engines right now, through cost savings and engineering and things like that, and if you buy two exact trucks, if we buy two trucks, the overall savings on a two-engine cost is $50,600. If you break that in half, it's $25,300 per engine. That's a huge savings in and of itself. Both engines would be newer, more reliable, less cost of maintenance. We would have to do it in a manner where we would buy one engine outright. We would do a lease purchase through Franklin Savings Bank at 2.35% annually, our interest rate, and we would do it over a 5-year lease purchase. It's the same as a loan, but they call it lease purchase.
It has an escape clause.
Yes. So every year at district meeting, there would be a line item in the apparatus and equipment fund to fund the lease purchase payments. If
That
that,
payment is 11.
the monthly payment is 11,000 and change. The annual payment is $143,717. You pay that for 5 years, and then you own the second truck outright. Now, with the loan, you do pay interest, but the total interest of the loan is $41,235.70. You save more than that just by buying the 2 trucks.
He says first year interest, 14,000.
Yes.
Now, what's that?
So there's an amortization table. So the first year's interest is 14,000. The second year's interest is less through an amortization table. It's like when you pay your mortgage. The first payment of your mortgage is, say your mortgage is 100,000. The first payment of your month is like $999 on interest and $1 towards the principal. And then the next month it moves a little. $2 on principal. Well, it's the same with one of these loans. You pay a lot, you pay your interest up front, and you pay the principal on the back end.
And there's no other, I know you went to Franklin Savings Bank, but there's no other place to shop around and see if you get a better deal?
Sure. So I talked to the Suffolk dealer who has a company that does lease to purchases for fire apparatus. And they're 4.175 or something, 4.176%. I haven't looked at anybody else.
Like Bank of New Hampshire
I haven't looked at
or
Bank of New
Northway
Hampshire or Bank
something.
North. One of the reasons I haven't looked anywhere else is I haven't had time to look anywhere else. But I certainly would look at other places. But I don't think, talking to other people who've gotten loans, we're probably not going to beat this interest rate. We may, but we probably won't. The reason being is the Tilton Northfield Fire District is an excellent customer of the Franklin Savings Bank. We currently run everything through them, and we have $1.3 million in the bank. So the loan, lease purchase, it's already backed up by money that we already have in the bank. So they're likely to give us a lesser rate. The other thing that they're realizing is that I'm the president of Lakes Region Mutual Fire Aid, and I brought Lakes Region Mutual Fire Aid to Franklin Savings Bank. So we're doing all our banking through Franklin Savings Bank because of my lobbying efforts in that effect. And Lakes Region Mutual Fire Aid has a loan with Franklin Savings Bank for 3.1% on the new radio system that's being installed currently for Lakes Region. But I will look for better rates, because I always do.
I think it's always good to have 3.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have more than 3. But these are what I could get right away in short order. The other thing to consider is that I got an email yesterday saying that the apparatus manufacturer is going to raise their prices on September 15th, anywhere from 2 to 4%. And as the date gets closer, they're going to let us know. If we sign a contract before they raise their prices, all this is good. But at the very bottom of that sheet I gave you, I can show you what the cost is for 1 engine and 2 engines, and then what the increase would be for a 2, 3, and 4%. So even if we only buy 1 engine this year, we're still going to be paying a ton of money to keep one of the other ones on the road. And it's probably going to be more than what the interest would be on the loan. So I know there's a lot to absorb here, but it's something that I've been researching very heavily, and I think this is the cheapest and most efficient way for the fire district to go, and to give us the tools that we need to do our job in a reliable fashion. But it's actually cheaper for the taxpayer to go this way than to try and keep the older trucks running. When I talk to trade-in on the trucks to the dealer, they don't want to take them in trade. 5 years ago, when we were looking to trade in engine 1, they were going to give us $5,000 then. It's been 5 years since. Although we will sell them somehow, it won't be in a trade. I don't know if it'll be Brindle Mountain or something. We'll try and have somebody go for the mountains. I also prepared two sheets that shows, and you're familiar with these, capital improvement program. One of them shows, how it works out if we buy 2 engines. Basically, the bottom line is that the apparatus and equipment fund still stays viable all the way through. Even adding $75,000 a year towards a bond payment for fire stations. And doing the FF&E on a new fire station as well. Furnish the things that we can buy with the apparatus and equipment fund, which I have at almost $200,000. When we build a new fire station, the stuff that we have to put in a fire station, like the plywood vent and or whatever, furniture, equipment that for firefighting purposes, it almost comes to $200,000. That comes right off the top of the price that we have to bond because we can pay for it with the apparatus and equipment fund. And then when we have to start making interest or bond payments or however that's worked out, this fund, and this is up to you guys, through my calculations, can contribute up to $75,000 a year on the bond payment before it goes out to the taxpayer. So whatever our bond payment is that year, you take $75,000 off, and then it goes to the taxpayers. We've been looking for them for 2 days. We can't get them. It's here. Additionally, every purchase that we have scheduled still can be purchased when it needs to be purchased. And I've been very conservative in my estimates of revenue, so that since I've arrived here, our revenue has gone up. But I've been very conservative in predicting what our revenue is going to be. And every year it's been better than what I've been predicted. So these are the worst case scenarios, unless something strange happens with Medicare or something else like that, which is not totally impossible. But for everything that we know, and everything that I know about this, buying 2 trucks right now is the best way to go. And the 2 scenarios I have is buying 1 engine, like we had planned, and the other scenario I have is buying the 2 engines. The 1 engine has $30,000 a year going towards a bond payment. The 2 engines has $75,000 a year going towards a bond payment. Now, the way that would work, every year, the commissioners will look at what we have in the apparatus and equipment fund, and through consultation with me and however you guys want, we will decide what that amount will be every year going towards the bond payment, because if something crazy happens, we might have to change that. You know, it might be more, it might be less. But through my years, 6 years of here and being able to predict of what's going on, this is the best thing that I can come up with. And I've been in Excel spreadsheets for the last 2 weeks, trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing, or I'm proposing the right solution.
Are those copies for each of us?
Yes, I have. I'll make sure you all get this. So the one in the bottom right-hand corner where it says 75, that's the one that's buying 2 engines at the same time. And the one in the bottom right-hand corner where it says 30 is buying 1 engine. But if we buy 2 engines right now, we will not have, we're scheduled to buy an engine in 2025. That won't happen. That'll get pushed out. And I'll get you the other one. Did I give you both?
Yep, yep.
Please be 75.
What's this one?
One engine, one's 2 engines. You should probably write, I probably should have put that in there somewhere.
So 75.
75 is 2 engines, and 30 is purchasing 1 engine.
No. Isn't 30 purchasing 2 engines?
No.
Purchasing them outright?
Yeah, so
Purchasing one.
we purchase 1 engine, we're going to purchase it outright. If we purchase 2 engines, we purchase the first one outright, and we do a lease purchase on the second one with a financial institution.
You cannot change the warrant article for the engine.
Right.
It has to be, stay the way it is. And then the governing body can enter into leases agreements without the governing body's approval.
Right, so the fire commission can enter into a lease purchase agreement, but without governing body approval.
Right.
But I don't want to do that without
No,
their
I
approval.
wouldn't.
You would. So if you guys think that I'm on the right track here, I want to have a meeting with the budget committee. And I want to get them on board with it. So then we can go to district meeting and we can all be on the same team saying, we have 2 engines that are just turned into a huge problem and it's just costing us more money than they're worth. And it's cheaper for us to buy 2 new engines right now, and this is how we propose to do it. We'll buy one outright, and the other one we'll do a lease purchase for, which the commissioners will authorize, and in the end, you're going to save money. You'll save money on, you'll be able to reduce the apparatus and equipment maintenance line by about $30,000. Now I haven't done my next year's budget yet, so it's going. I don't know if it's going to be 31,000 or 26,000.
This year's approved.
I know.
Yeah, I haven't even approved this year's, which is another problem because I'll discuss that in a second. But we would do an amendment to the actual warrant that's out there now for the correct amount to purchase 2. And it's actually less than what the current amount on the warrant article is, I think. I have to look back at it and see what that number is. So, do you know, you can tell. Warrant article 6?
Warrant article 6, I have it right here.
And what's the amount on warrant article 6 for the engine?
$811,450. $811,450.
But we are already going to make an amendment to change that.
That's correct.
So the amendment, I believe, if I'm looking at this correctly, we would need it would change it to $766,800. So it's still less than what we had put on the warrant article. We can still get 2 engines. What that 766 is the purchase outright of the first engine and about 5 months payment on the second engine, because by the time we get a contract signed, it'll be the end of August. Maybe we make a payment right away. I don't know, but I put 5 months in there.
So we start paying for that.
even before we get the trucks.
So you pay
Because,
for a year.
because we sign a contract, we pay, the loan gets paid up front, the way it works. That's one of the reasons we get such a big break. So I've been squeezing these guys really hard.
How do you present it at town meeting?
That's going to be difficult because
Because we
they're going
have
to
one,
want to change the warrant article, and you can't do that.
you can't go back and change it,
No,
and you can, but you could change it if you had talked about it before. You
no,
could-
you cannot.
As
It
presented.
has to be as presented.
You can amend the amount.
Correct.
But
What's
you
I'm talking
can't-
about, amend the
You can
amount.
amend the amount, yes, but you can't change the
But
purpose.
we can't,
Right.
if we're approved for 700 or 8, whatever the amount, 811,
Yeah.
right? And then all of a sudden, we go, oh, hey, by the way, with that, you can't go back and reopen that article, I believe.
No.
So how, I guess you have to present this beforehand.
So
We still have to get the budget committee's approval too.
You have to present it at the meeting, but you have to be very careful on how you do this, because DRA is going to be looking at it through a microscope.
Oh, yeah.
And if there's any hint in there that, okay, we're doing this, and it's going to include a lease, that cannot be, because it wasn't the original intent, and they'll pick it out.
That would suck.
So I guess how would you do it?
So you bring it, you go up, you present the warrant article, and then say, we have an issue, this is how we propose to resolve it, and we wanted you to know before we signed any lease agreement, lease purchases.
Yeah.
Before,
or
so they don't get to vote on it?
well,
Correct.
actually, wait a second.
No, they can't vote on it.
Do it a different way. And I don't know if we just talked to DRA about this. We just put the amount in the purchase, the first engine, on the warrant article. We amend a line item in the apparatus and equipment fund to include, we just raise the bottom line of the apparatus and equipment fund line. That would,
Slippery.
yeah, I'm just trying to think what's
It's
legal.
not slippery, you can increase the amount of the budget,
Yeah.
That would include the 5 months payments for the.
but you can't say that it's including the lease purchase. That's the whole problem.
Right. Because we have to do it as if we would have done it back in
Absolutely.
March. Everything had to be done like that. Even though
That's
things
right.
have changed, and I mean, we're already in that slippery slope with the SCBA.
Right. You have to do it the way it was warned. You can increase it, but you can't say that it's, oh, we need
It almost feels like we have to have a
exclude.
special meeting
Yes.
because we're always, I don't know how to explain this, so I'm just going to say it. It almost feels like we've taken March and we're moving it to July.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now, okay, so this is what it was like in July or in March, and this is what we're doing. We froze time for 5 months or 3 months or whatever. But, oh, by the way, we have this other issue. It almost feels like we need to have, we would have had to have had a special meeting anyways to approve something like
We
this.
would have had to have a special meeting, but that's going to be very expensive.
Well, I know that, but I'm just, to
But-
keep it legal.
So,
You're keeping it legal.
So before we go any further, do you think the premise is a good idea?
Without, oh, I'm sorry.
No, no.
Without uprooting, I did have some cons that I wanted to put on the table that you may have already thought of, but I don't want to derail your thought process of this. I just know there are some cons to this. Something that come to me is, so you're talking about buying 2 apparatus. We're paying a higher price on apparatus because we're trying to squeeze them into a 9-foot opening. Theoretically, it would probably be cheaper to have a second apparatus designed and built for a 12 by opening or a 14 by opening. We would save some money. So people are going to be looking at this saying you're paying higher for an apparatus because you're trying to squeeze it into that smaller square.
So I addressed that with the apparatus manufacturer. The reason we're getting the $50,600 break is because it's 2 exact engines.
Right. So the engineering costs.
So
we can just-
they only engineer 1 and they build 2.
Right, but it's just some people, and I'm like I said, I see this from different avenues, I'm just putting it all on the table to be ahead of you. Some people in town are gonna say, you're paying $766 or whatever for one. Theoretically, you could probably get less than that on a 12 by 12 square apparatus. Theoretically, that's going to be one of the naysayers out there. By buying two apparatus now, we're paying a higher to fit it into that smaller opening. It's just one of the arguments out there, so we have to be ready for that argument, and I can see how people could be seeing it in that engineering square, even though you're saving engineer costs on the second apparatus, absolutely.
And still, that's not saying that we're going to have something, and this is going to be our first new engine. One of them is going to be our first new engine. So if we only buy one, it's going to be our first new engine. It has to fit.
Correct.
Because there's no guarantee that we're going to get anything else than what we have right now at any time soon.
Agreed.
So we have to account for that. And the other thing is, if that engine needs maintenance and repairs, we still have to use something that's going to fit in there.
You lose that argument because you use the tower for a while by itself, even though it's parked outside, I assume.
It is.
And so
And
you
if that
lost that
happens-
argument that we still may do without two apparatus, but it's just the public naysayers, and there are some that are going to be out there for that. They're going to be sitting there with that, really? And throw that right back into you, that you had to do it before when you had two apparatus costs.
This is the only thing we have.
January.
I agree, but I believe last winter, we actually had apparatus stored outside for a bit. Didn't we?
No.
No,
When we were doing work here, was that not winter time?
that was not winter time.
Okay, good, but I'm just saying,
No, no.
I remember we had an apparatus sitting outside when you were doing painting or something here, and I thought that was still in there, so that's fine. But these are just some of the naysayers out there, and I see it from both sides, and I'm kind of on the fence.
But, you know, you can discuss it, and you can increase the apparatus and equipment warrant, not the one for the truck, but the one for the budget for the apparatus and equipment fund. You can increase that to include first whatever you need for the lease payment.
Okay. Okay.
You
As
know,
long as
you
that's-
you can't do it as part of the truck,
Right.
but you can include it in the regular budget of the apparatus. and
Right.
equipment fund.
So you can increase the apparatus, what we know of. But there again, they don't have the right to vote on it. They have the right to
They
vote
will
on
be
it.
if you do
Yeah,
it.
but all I'm saying is they don't have, you can't tell them what you're actually going to do.
You can tell
can't.
them that we want to increase this to cover
The
X
cost
amount of lease
of a new
purchase.
vehicle,
So-
a second vehicle.
Right,
Right. So it would be an amendment to the apparatus
Right.
fund. You'd have to make an amendment on the floor to increase that as they're voting for the overall budget, I believe.
right.
And then from there, with the intent that that increase is to move forward with this, if you were to go that way. Because then they could say, nope, we're not going to vote for that, we're going to go with the existing budget.
What I would recommend is you swap Articles 5 and 6,
Okay,
because 6 is the new engine, 5 is the regular budget for the apparatus and equipment fund. That way you have the conversation, you get the first engine through under the
under the operating budget
operating budget.
as a lease.
As the lease,
owned.
you have that conversation
Completely independent of the
completely
second one.
independent.
The downside with that, as I can also, just being the doom and gloom guy, someone in the audience saying, well, if we did that, I'm going to vote no on the next one because we already made it happen.
If you explain to them,
I know.
you know,
How some people think, and I could see that happening.
So the downside of only buying one right now is that we know the prices are going to go up.
Yes.
So even if we buy one next year, we're going to pay the single price for an engine, and the price is going up, and we still have to maintain another hunk of junk, basically.
I agree.
So,
And you're really 2 years away from getting a second engine.
right.
Because this engine is, how was it, 12 to 14 months?
The latest proposal was 11 to 13, so a year.
Yeah.
The other thing you have to think about is that this thing's going to turn 20 years old in a few months. And once it turns 20, Primex will not cover it
a replacement.
at replacement value. They replace it at actual value, which is nothing. So if for some terrible reason this was going up Bay Street or something like that in the winter and hit a patch of ice, slid and rolled over and totaled itself out, they say, here's your check for $5,000.
I don't think so.
Well, and that brings me to my second con. So now if we do two, we now have two engines being bought at the same time, not staggered apart. We're going to be falling into a 20-year, unless, and there's many different things that affect engines. I mean, obviously, they can get to an accident within a year of buying it, and it's always a pain on us for the entire 19 years.
Engine three.
Engine 3.
Oh, three, okay. But theoretically, you are now buying two with a 20-year expectation of two. So it's going to be almost like the SCBA, where we then come, how do you stagger at the opposite end so that you can
But technically, you should get 40 years on it. If you rotate,
But by Primex,
20
no.
years here, 20 years here.
Primex? But yes,
I mean, you should.
After 20 years, they don't cover
You
it.
know,
right. So, but that's just, like I said, some other cons I'm looking at to make sure we're aware of is now the end of life. You have two of them coming to end of life simultaneously, and that's a
So
little bit expensive.
you would do that through a use pattern where you use one 3/4 of the time and one 1/4 of the time. So the one you use 3/4 of the time times out at about the time you need to purchase a new one. And the other one is still good for another 5 or so more years.
So you're saying use one up to the 15-year mark?
Yep.
Okay, because we don't want to exceed the 20-year gap.
No.
So plan one to wear it down less than 20 years, which will lead us to the third con, public input on everything. So you're planning on buying something for 20 years, or are you going to get 20 years out of it? These are just things that, if I came up with these, someone in that audience, who might be on the budget committee, is going to come up with these same things just as quick as I did thinking of this.
So in the end, though,
Right.
in the end, this is the cheaper way to do it. And usually that's what drives most people's decisions. It's cheaper now. And then if you do get something at the end of 15 years, you might have some trade-in value on it. Whereas right now, you get jacked.
I guess unfortunately, I actually work in a car dealership. We service ambulances for a local hospital, and they have 2 ambulances that were bought and the same. And, you know, one just happens to break down more. You know, like it was on a call and the fan disintegrated right after the call. You know, so they bring that in, and that one seems to come in more frequent. Whatever reason, it's got defective parts in it.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we see that one more often than the one bought at the same time. We don't see it,
Okay.
you know, except for routine.
I'm just trying to think of the capital rollover of apparatus and stuff, and just to make sure we have these type of answers. Because, like I said, there's going to be people in the public that is going to be looking at this the same way that we are on both sides of the coin, and they're going to be very vocal.
I just don't want it to happen like years ago with the pickups. I don't know if you...
No, that's why I want to
Yeah.
be totally up above board,
When
have a discussion with,
they approved X amount of dollars, they went out and bought 2 brand new pickups.
which was legal to do.
It was
in
legal,
the budget,
but the
but
people did not
it
know
was
for it.
backhanded because they didn't inform the people what was
You're
going
right.
on.
You're right, they did
This,
not.
and this is different. I'm talking to you guys right now. I want to talk to the budget committee. I want to be totally upfront about this. I want to educate everybody as to why I think this is the best way to go. And I show them the dollars and cents why it's the best way to go. If you still want to pay $20,000 a year or more to keep these 2 trucks on the road, well, it's going to be more because that number keeps going up every year.
Do you have any rough estimate of what those repairs were this month for those 2 engines?
The last repair on engine 3 cost $9,900.
Okay, so now you're at 49,000,
Yeah, this year,
and the budget's 55,000, so we've already expended, you know.
so currently, engine 1 was scheduled to have $6,346 worth of maintenance. Known things that need to be done, tires and oil change and fluid film and stuff like that. Engine 3, 4,370. So far, engine 1, we spent basically $6,000 in engine 1 and over $16,000 in engine 3. So far this year, where we're 5.5 months into the fiscal year, we spent just on engine 1 and engine 3, $22,176. If we carry that out to the end of the year, we're at $48,384. You only gave me $54,000 to work with to do repairs and maintenance. Currently, we've spent 77% of my repairs and maintenance budget, and we're only 46% through the fiscal year. That begs the question, should we amend the operating budget to cover, probably that's a shortfall in this line item.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, 5 years ago, we kind of addressed this. We had the engine committee put together. We're like, listen, when we bought these engines, we were doing 1,000 calls a year, and now we're at 1,700 and going up. They're great engines for if you're doing 1,000 calls a year, but when your volume increases, you use more and more, and we identified that engine 1 just wasn't going to make it. And at that time, the public voted to keep it, because we kind of saw this potentially happening, just kind of outlived its life. And, here we are 5 years later, and engine 3 is starting to go down the same path, unfortunately, and the call volume still continues to go up. So it's just a compound of many things that have got us.
To kind of build on that, I've been in the fire service almost 40 years now. I've bought in a lot of fire apparatus. The only thing I can really tell you positively about fire apparatus, they get more expensive every single year. If we had purchased that engine 5 years ago in 2015, we wouldn't be in the problem we are right now. The engine cost in 2015, which was going to be a C grade, which is probably one of the most expensive trucks out there, was $525. Now we're up to $703 for an engine that was the same spec as 5 years ago. And some might even say a less quality of an engine. So in the 5 years, it's gone up over around $200,000. So in 5 years from now, you can expect that they're going to go up another $200,000 or so. But we know for a fact that September 15th, they're going up somewhere between 2 and 4%.
Which is good to know.
And those numbers are reflected on that sheet that I gave you, what the differences are and how they add up.
I think one school of thought I have, which is a little out of the norm, I'm out of the norm anyways. I really would like to see what the budget committee has for input, because I personally, I'm kind of on the fence both ways. I see the cost savings now, but I also see the other side of it. I did public and things like that, the whole station, so I'm seeing both sides of it. I think trying to add something on, that alone you're going to have, you guys are trying to shift and put in the books. It's what perception is. We're not in any way, shape, or form, but people out there are going to try saying that we're trying to be shifty with it, and I agree we're not. So don't. You're very good with your books, and that's why I sent you that email today, because I did appreciate it, so don't hang me yet. But the public out there's going to be one or two out there that are going to throw that on the table. And I'm very curious to see what the budget committee would actually consider of this, just for their feedback to us.
So you'd be in favor of me bringing this to the budget committee?
I would, yes.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
what I want anyways.
Yeah.
That's what I really
I
want.
absolutely want get more feel from the people to be before the meeting, because you have a couple of naysayers on that group.
I do.
So get the naysayer input in ahead of time, and then see if there is which way to go that has the best chance?
I would, just thinking common sensibly to me, the cheapest way to go is usually what happens here. And I'm showing you the cheapest way to go.
Right now, people are just screaming up and down about and I'm not arguing with you, Chief. I'm not arguing with you. I'm not 100% sold, but I'm not 100% the opposite side either.
What would make you 100% sold? You, not anybody
Yep.
else.
So
just
for
you.
me, I really have a concern with the end of life and the whole station and fitting it. I personally think that if we were to engineer a truck, yes, you're going to pay engineering costs, but how much of a saving could we have to fit something into a 12 by 12 or a 14 by 14 over squeezing it into a 9 by 9? Would that offset that engineering cost to make it streamlined to fit there? Because theoretically, that's another thing people are looking at. You're already looking at spending money potentially on a station. I'm nervous about the cost and
Engineering costs. You could find that out, right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm just saying, these are some of the questions out there because people are going to be looking at it. Absolutely, it looks like good on paper here, but if we're trying to do a station and you could get another apparatus, say for $600,000 that can fit in a 12 by 12 existing here, or a 14 by 14, people are going to look at why are we paying $700 or whatever for this when we could go for a little bit cheaper for the bigger one, even with an engineering cost. So that's just part of the argument.
And it will happen.
Well, I think without actually knowing that engineering number, I know that just by waiting, you're going to wipe that out just from the increase in the
And it
cost.
will
of
go
the
up, I
engine.
agree with you. I mean, but that's just part of it, is just in the end of the life, I have a concern with now we have two of our attack pieces coming up, theoretically aging, even though with your administrative usage, blow usage, and first, they're
So
still
we
gonna
know
age
that,
quickly.
we know that up front, so we can plan for that. It's predictable, so preventing something that negative from happening is going to be a whole lot easier.
But trying to sell 15 years from now and say to the public, and in 15 years from now, we're going to come to you to replace one engine before its end of life, so we can get staggered from this. I see the cross argument on that.
Well, you know, and come 15 years from now, they may change their mind, or I'm not going to be here 15 years from now, and
No,
I don't know anybody at this table is probably not going to be sitting in these seats 15 years from now. We're going to leave something for the younger guys to handle as well.
I see your argument, John, and, you know, end of life, but when's that fire station being built?
You're right, we don't know.
We don't know. And
It could be 21 years.
And I think next year, just looking to get that station passed is going to be tough, because I believe the school district is going to have some big ticket items.
It'll probably be the following year, but yeah. The fire station will luckily probably be before the school.
Hopefully, but we don't know that yet. We don't know, I mean, this whole COVID thing has set us back, you know, quite a bit. And you know, if we don't get it on the agenda for next year, I think if you're saying the school's going to go the next year, you know, we're 3 years. That none of these engines are going to last three years.
I agree.
You know, because it's a year turnaround. So I thought about that, you know, but you know what? Well, maybe we get two. You know, and it could be the best thing since sliced bread. That, hey, you know what? We got things, and I kind of like it because they get, you know, the guys that work on these things, they don't have to remember where things are because they're in the same exact thing.
There's
you know,
a pro to that for the operational side, absolutely, and that's a big plus for you guys.
You know, that wrench is always there. You know, it's not
You
in
go
this
for
drawer.
this truck,
This
correct.
No.
This truck is that is going to be in this, and it's going to be
The
here.
only thing you got to look at is the number on the side or the back or wherever they put the numbers on it.
Yeah,
You know.
that is a definite pro, having the uniform for
And I think
the
that's a huge-
operational side of things, I agree.
So I keep saying, go back to Tewksbury, that's how we ordered, the engines were exactly the same.
But staggered.
Yes. No, we bought two at one time
Okay.
because circumstances beyond.
Stuff happens.
It does.
We had the frame on one of them went out before we thought it would, so we ended up buying them at the same time. They were the
Something
twin
could
ships.
happen, just like engine 1, or engine 3 was the one that had the accident within the first year that
Yep.
never,
Yes.
you could buy, life happens. and one may be a problem for the next 15, 20 years. You don't know. I mean, absolutely. You may not be able to get 15 years out of it. You might at 10 be trying, okay, how can we, because it is just a lemon.
You know, one of the trucks that sucked up a bass in the river one day, and it screws up the pump forever. And they gotta get a new pump in. I mean, I don't know.
I definitely would like more input from the budget committee. I'm all in favor of that part.
In regards to the 15 years out thing, none of us are going to be here, but I can devise a plan for that to show how we can stagger that out. But probably people that come after me and the person that comes after him is probably going to change that one way or another, because things within the fire district itself has changed.
Maybe the
But-
levitating fire trucks.
They're looking at electric fire trucks now, but you know, they're looking at building electric fire trucks now.
I mean, like I say, I'm not saying no. I just would like more thought process or more feedback from a couple of those guys, because a couple of those guys are rather in tune, and some are pros for things, some are very much against. And I'd love to hear more feedback on this of how to consider it, make sure that, because I like how you presented it, but I also see that if we move that first with the operating budget, they're going to say, oh, well, you don't need that second engine. I can see them, some people trying to do that immediately.
But the only reason you would want to do that is so that you can have that discussion.
Yes.
You know, you bring up your truck, you get that voted on, and then you have the discussion.
Yep.
Regarding the lease purchase.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I just see that there's some people out there that, like the school meeting where they're like, okay, let's postpone this as option number one. there's those people.
Always those people.
Exactly. But sometimes those are the loudest people, and they draw their supporters.
Maybe they'll be on vacation.
It'd be nice.
You never know.
I like it.
July 13th, you know?
So I guess the next step is, if he wants to meet with the budget committee, would we meet again, or?
Well, we have a meeting.
We would have
It's not until July 21st.
the budget committee.
No, your next meeting. It's after district meeting, that's when you
I thought
decide
that
to
was
have
the
it.
first Tuesday.
It is the
I was
first
on
Tuesday, Chief's on
vacation.
vacation.
How dare you?
I have vacation from last year I haven't used yet.
I got 6
not
weeks
long.
filled up.
When do you leave on vacation?
I'm going,
Where are you going? You can't go anywhere.
when they get my calendar up.
Where do you live?
Hold on.
I'm going to put my glasses on and get my calendar up.
The 6th of July. He is gone, the 4th is Saturday, so he won't be back until the 12th.
The third
The third is the holiday, so
Right,
the last day I'm working
will be the
is
2nd.
second, Thursday the
So-
second.
And then
Theoretically, could we do it the first or the second, where it's still technically a July meeting? Instead of having July meeting at the end of June?
it will be tight. I'm on vacation next week.
Yeah.
Holy smoke!
And
Come
you?
on, guys.
So in between the two of them. So for the next 3 weeks, it's someone on vacation.
One of us is on vacation.
One of us is
for the
on
next week-
vacation.
For the next 3
You
weeks.
can zoom in.
No, I'm not.
I don't mind meeting
I'd
on
like
the
to make a
first or the
motion.
second.
All right, the 1st is Wednesday, the 2nd is a Thursday.
No, the first is my golf day.
Oh, so,
Hey, vacation or golf?
The second I have selectmen.
Wait a
So-
second, Thursday,
That's right.
but that might be the Wednesday week not golfing. I'll have to check the calendar.
I think it's the Wednesday or not.
you've got it on your calendar.
I have it on my calendar because if we don't have any rain dates, that'll be like a tournament day.
Daytime or nighttime?
It starts at, the league tee-off is at 4:30.
When are you usually done? I'm serious, I
Right.
Oh, not like 7 o'clock meeting we couldn't do?
19 holes.
8 o'clock, probably, I'm out here around 8
Yeah,
o'clock.
it's a little too late for us. I'm trying.
What time?
He said 8 o'clock.
Oh, it's a piece of cake. It's great for me. I don't have to rush you.
No, you'd actually be on time.
I left early. Other people.
I'll have to get back to you on the first.
And you're gone the second? Or-
No.
No, I'm gone next, leave Friday and I won't be back until
He's got a
the
selectmen's
29th.
meeting on the second.
Yeah, it's selecting meeting.
That's at what time?
That's at 4:45.
So, how late do you get going?
7:30.
Chaos.
They last like forever.
I could make earlier, is that an option for either of you?
That depends
I
on,
can do early on the
Back
second.
to Friday.
Don't go out of that hand.
how early. Sorry, guys.
I got an open top my menu. Yeah, so, is, how would you work for earlier on Thursday? If we're meeting early for a meeting.
Yeah, I could do that.
How about you on Thursday the 2nd?
I can do Thursday.
So that
All right, so how early do you want to do it?
I guess it depends on the budget committee.
So,
I just have to be able to, I'm assuming that we'll still be meeting in person by then, so I just need to be able to get, well, actually, I'd be at town hall.
Yeah.
if we could meet there.
If I just go.
Well, we should be able to, I think, Tilton Hall's opening on Monday.
Yeah, we-
4:45.
4:45, so
So-
we end by 4:30.
Yeah, I suppose I could put a request in to see if we can start later that day, but I don't know.
Oh.
what to do.
3 o'clock potentially, that gives us.
What if you did a 2:30 meeting? That would give you plenty of time.
I usually get out of work at 1, so that works. 2:30.
2:30, 3:30, 3:30, 4:30, that gives you 2 hours to hash this
I'll make
out.
it, I can make it happen.
We don't need to put a whole lot on the agenda either.
No, I mean, it's all fun figuring out this dual link.
So we're going for, what day?
The 2nd,
June 2nd, July 2nd.
July 2nd.
We'll
Let me
move
write
the
it down
21st
here.
to July 2nd.
Now, wait a minute, do you want to do that? Because don't you want to meet after district meeting?
Yes, we
to-
did,
Okay.
to
Yes.
finalize, sign, and do whatever. Yep.
All right, so July 2nd, 2:30 PM. I'll see what I can get at Town Hall,
2:30?
2:30.
Just email me.
Of course, Paul, I'll send you a new calendar.
Yeah.
Now, that's going to make it really tight to get on the board stuff.
I think this is just a meeting to meet with the budget committee that day.
Are you meeting with the budget committee or is it just?
No,
Okay, that's just,
Before that.
that's for you
Then we're
guys
discussing
to discuss their input.
Oh, I
and
thought
then-
we were meeting with them.
No.
No,
I have
I didn't think
to,
it
I have
was
to
that way.
contact,
Judy told me.
husband,
Jason,
Jason Wright. We'll
yes,
contact Jason Wright.
okay.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna meet with them, the budget committee.
Yeah,
and then
even
bring it
when,
back.
yeah, all of us together, because
Oh.
of course we'll be there for about.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
All right.
And it will lose its whole meaning of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I even thought the budget committee would be here tonight, so what do I know? I'll just go shut up.
It's all right. It's been,
Carry on.
Less conflict with throwing into it by all being present, and then afterwards.
No, I see.
yeah, so it works out well, I'm on vacation next week, because on vacation the week after that, then the chief's on vacation. And then we have district meeting, July.
We hope the
No,
numbers don't spike.
it'll happen. Right, Tim?
But what?
Yeah, but don't you have to quarantine for, if you go out of state, don't you have to quarantine for 2 weeks?
I'm not going out of state.
I'm not even leaving the county.
I am leaving the county.
Well,
That's what I had.
the county I live in.
There you go.
Wherever his wife tells him he's going.
Well, they don't believe it. We go to Hampton where they don't believe in us.
Okay, so we all set there?
I think for that part, yeah.
All right, so July 2nd, 2:30, to rehash this.
It'll be at Town Hall.
Well,
We'll figure
something
it out.
goes out.
We think we will.
We think, but I'll double check.
Just not here, but we just gotta leave enough time for Eric to get.
Yeah, we're still here.
Son's leaving the world?
Jeez, they're going right back to the same place. Yeah. They'll have that.
Same place that we were talking about earlier?
Different.
Different, same place.
Okay, let's move on. So I'm
Yep.
gonna review the minutes, June 2nd, 2020. Everybody read them?
I did,
Wanted,
or I did last time, I didn't read them today to be fresh on it.
we can have them next time.
Ah,
Sorry. sorry. I was catching up on other stuff.
Well, you read them already.
I just don't remember. I probably am fine with them. Either way.
You want to make a motion? Somebody want to make a
Make a
motion?
motion to approve the minutes of June 2nd,
I'll second it.
2004.
There you go.
Then move it second. All those in favor?
All right.
You
I
know
read
what?
them at one time, you're right. And I didn't scream then.
Okay, any other business?
Yes, the manifests have to be done, the investment policy has to be signed. You already approved it on April 6th. And then the labor grade step system policy, and you already approved that on on May 5th. Yeah.
So I signed everything.
I
So
did.
you're going to sign.
Yeah, I get to have the signing part.
Yes.
Okay, the next meeting, July
It's been changed
21st.
now.
Yes, you're still having one July 21st.
Oh, yeah,
but the-
okay.
Yes, the next one will be July 2nd.
Yep.
And that will be to review district meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The district meeting and engines.
Yep. And then,
I should have all the financial reports and run reports done, but you're probably not going to get an email beforehand.
oh, just wait. Do it on the 21st, but all the figures are in. That would be interesting.
Anybody else got anything? I'll make a motion, we adjourn at 7:34.
Second. Second.
Then move it second. All those in favor?
All right.